Now, a Scottish MP is calling for a change in the law to guarantee all workers 2 weeks of bereavement leave after the death of a loved one. The SNP's Patricia Gibson told me the current system, relying on an employer's goodwill to grant leave, is unfair.
Well, this actually stems from work that was done in 2018 on a cross-party basis across the House of Commons to bring forward parental paid bereavement leave for parents who had lost a child up to the age of 18 years old. And now, of course, we are still in the midst of a pandemic. 149,000 people in the UK have died as a result of COVID. And it seems to me that the time has come now to bring forward paid bereavement leave for everybody who loses a close family member.
And what do we know about the cost of this then, Patricia? I was reading a figure that grief experienced by employees who have lost a loved one cost the UK economy £23 billion per year. Can you just talk me through that figure and how we come to that figure?
Well, actually, some estimates put the cost even as high as £49 billion a year. And the reason that cost would come in is because of the loss of productivity to the economy due to people simply being unable to continue, I suppose, functioning normally as a result of intense and persistent grief. And all the studies show us that the support that you give to somebody in the initial trauma and loss of grief is fundamental to how they are able to then process that grief and go forward.
And how are we defining loved one here, Patricia? Can you just talk us through, you know, who needs to, I suppose, pass away in order for this then to come into effect?
Well, I think, you know, in common sense terms, when we talk about a close family member, we're talking about husbands, wives. We're talking about parents, you know, we're talking about our sisters, brothers, we're talking about the close, the initial circle of the family unit, I think is a fairly common sense approach to this. So
not a friend, for example, a close friend?
No, well, they wouldn't be covered by the contents of this bill. For that, no.
And what about this idea? Because obviously we want to make sure that a system like this isn't open to abuse, and some people may well think that there are gaps in terms of how many, say, times that this can be used within a year, say within 12 months. Within the legislation that you would like to see, would there be caps put on the amount of time that somebody can take off?
You know, the whole purpose of this legislation is to support people through their grief in the initial stages. Now, if you have got, for example, two brothers, and sadly both of them die within 6 months of each other of COVID, I think you have to recognise there is a real impact on anybody who experiences that level of loss. And I really don't think this is open to abuse. I don't think people are going to start inventing relatives, for example. What this bill will do is it will make for a more productive, a more resilient, and a more fair society. And it's fundamentally a social justice issue, and it will put well-being at the heart of our workforce. And that can only be good for economic growth.
And finally, Patricia, so we know that compassionate leave is something that is widely used, I suppose, at the moment. Would this legislation run in addition to compassionate leave, or would this be essentially just enshrining compassionate leave into law?
You see, and you've hit on something fundamental here. There are many good employers out there who are very supportive when a member of their workforce suffers a terrible loss of a close family member. We know that there are good stories out there, but we also know that there are many employers who simply don't provide the kind of compassion that we would expect and hope that they would. So in order to create a level playing field, because grief knows no boundaries in terms of, you know, social class. So in order to make sure there's a level playing field, I think we need paid statutory bereavement leave for anyone who needs it. And there may be people, because people process grief differently, there may be people who choose not to avail themselves of that leave, and that's entirely up to them. But it should be available for those who need that time and space to grieve and process the huge impact that the loss of a close family member can have.
Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you indeed. Patricia Gibson, thanks for joining us on the 7 this evening.
Okay, thank you.